Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the very first video podcast episode of the Coffee Smarter podcast. To be fair, you may only be listening to it and you may not even see the video. We'll see how it looks at the end of the day. I haven't decided yet. I'm your host, Ryan Woldt, and this show is presented by Roastery Coffee Packaging. You can find them online at roastery.com. They actually made this bag for me, and I love it, and it's awesome. Our guest today is Chris O'Brien of Coffee Cycle Roasting, coffeecycleroasting.com if you're on the internet. He was our original Coffee Smarter guide, so it only makes sense that he's back to help me kind of test out this new video system, figure out how we're gonna go forth in our journey in coffee. Chris, welcome back to Coffee Smarter.
It's great to be here, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's been a minute. In the time since you were last here, you did something ridiculous where you opened a second location, and I wanted to ask you about that today.
I think ridiculous is a pretty good word for it,
It's double the work, right? Triple the work?
Yes and no. I don't know, maybe double, triple the stress. I don't know if it's double, triple the work. Yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey to a lot of learning, a lot of discovery, and I'm not unhappy about it. I think it's a pretty special thing that we've done, in particular with this one. But if I'm speaking to other people looking at the same kind of thing, I'm like, okay, well, know what you're getting into.
Yeah. Well, that's my question for today. I don't want to say it's a simple one, but it's just kind of a single focus. You had one shop that you ran for 5 years, going on 6.
7.
7, going on 7.
7 going on
8. 7 going on 8. And you just opened this new shop in 2024 in Ocean Beach, San Diego neighborhood of California, which I know you had been ogling for years and years and years. It's a much bigger shop than your original shop. What was the transition like for you? Obviously, there's a long workup, a long build-up to getting the shop open. I know that was a process, but once the doors were open on the second shop, what's that transition been like for you, the process of managing the workflow in 2 locations instead of 1, as the owner-operator of the business?
Well, I think with business growth, kind of looking at the way that I've done it, where I started at the cart and then I had the shop and now I have the second shop, there's sort of 2 ways I could look at it. One is, I'm replicating and growing. And so I think there has to be an element of that where, you want to develop systems, right? So that when you're doing something in one place, you can repeat it to do it in another place. So when I had the cart by myself, and then moving into a brick and mortar location, employees was the big change for the most part. It's developing a system that an employee could follow. And I remember, when you were helping me out at that shop, there were things that I was like, I don't know if I could ask an employee to do this. I don't feel like I could, systemize this, basically. Kind of helped guide me and help show me like, oh no, like this is something you can totally do. You just do this, and just tell them what to do. And
I don't remember doing that. I don't remember helping at all.
Well, it's a good thing one of us does.
I remember being there for sure, but I don't remember being of service.
You were of service. You were helpful, and I'm very grateful. So, the second shop, obviously, we've grown into a shop that has a store manager. It has employees. It has sort of levels of employee, right? You have someone who's kind of newly trained versus a key holder, someone who can be responsible for the whole shop. And then you have to do that all over again. So that's the sort of replication factor where you're saying, okay, these people or me are doing this. How do I make this into a system so that I can do this again? But the other factor, which is a little bit more relevant, well, not more, but also relevant for my situation, is the sort of stepping stone idea. So, the cart was never my goal, right? To have a coffee cart was a goal, but it was a goal on the path to having a shop. It was like, okay, well, I'm just a barista making coffee for a living. Like, how the heck am I gonna open up a full shop on that salary? Am I right? Mm-hmm. And so, I did what I could and then built from there. And then I went to the next step and then built from there. So really my shop is my Ocean Beach shop is very much like an end goal type of thing. Roaster in-house, more full food menu, lots of seating, ability to do events. It's the culmination of a dream, and it's a sort of a stepping stone process. Okay, how can I get here? And can I use this previous step to help me get there?
Well, I think a good point that you're making right there is if you are at A and let's say C or D is the end goal, you've got a cart and your goal is to get to a fully fleshed out shop, there might be stops along the way, and none of those are failures if they're not the final boss, the final goal. They're just part of that process of stepping from one spot to the next, always going a little bit further until you reach the thing that you started out going, this is what I want today.
Exactly.
Because I know for me, I can get caught up in it where I do something and it's not quite as good as the thing I saw in my head, or it's not quite as big or as wide, and I come down on myself and I think, like, you didn't succeed here. But it's like, well, actually you did this thing and it's a totally cool new thing. It's not the final thing, but it is something new that you're putting out in the world. And so I think it's important to try to remember that, because as an entrepreneur, as you are, there's a lot of emotional and mental toll that you take on day to day. And in particular, in the hospitality space, you're taking it on for other people as well.
Yeah.
And so keeping this far distant thing, like, hey, that's like the final thing, but it's okay if I don't get there today. I'm working my way there, is a real value.
Yeah. So I think that's also great that you highlight that, because, to really kind of circle back to what I think the intent of your original question was, how is the day to day now? How is like the actual function of running this second thing while also maintaining the first thing? And I think, while there's a great joy to seeing this final culmination of something kind of come into fruition, there's a lot of other things at play. There's a bit of sadness that the process is over, that the process of building, because I really enjoy that process. But more relevantly, there's the kind of kindness I have to give to myself to say, hey, like, if I didn't have the experience of having done this in a smaller shop already once before, how would I measure these successes? Is this a success? Is this not a success? So, our grand opening day was like wildly awesome and so far beyond what I could have projected how it would go. And it was like, we're off to the races, let's go. And then it slowed down a lot, because that's a grand opening day and it's not going to be like that every day. But then it was like, oh, we're matching numbers to our other shop already. That's really cool. So to have that direct comparison was really nice. But then it was like, oh, this is a much bigger shop, so matching numbers isn't that great after all. So, all the different ways that you can evaluate it, all the different perspectives that you can take it from, can have an impact on that sort of emotional toll that you were mentioning.
I think that leaves us with just the question of, when are we opening the third shop? Well,
you didn't understand the ultimate goal. Ultimate is an interesting word here, my friend. So, yeah, I think trying to duplicate the same systems, but also develop new ones for what we have now. I keep coming back to this feeling every couple of years that I feel like I'm launching a new business every year or two. Whether it's opening a brick and mortar or a menu expansion or starting to roast or opening a second location or having my own roaster or, making food on site rather than getting it prepared from another provider. It's like interesting because that last one was the most recent one that I've done, where we just launched our whole panini menu, and it's simple and it's small. But I haven't worked in a place that prepared their own food for 20 years. And while it was sort of stressful in terms of like a mental block of like, okay, imposter syndrome, am I like really like good at this? And I like to cook, don't get me wrong. But it was almost easy. But it was still hard and stressful at the same time. But it was like, I know what to do here. I'm going to spend this money doing this stuff. I'm going to have to print this stuff out. I'm going to ask my staff to come up with these systems. They're not going to do it. And then I'm going to have to go in and do it. And now here we are. So that's pretty cool, and it's been pretty successful. People really like it. So, let's see where it goes from here.
Well, your point, I think, there to close out, that you feel like you're opening a new business every couple of years, even though it's the same business, the same facility, because you're incorporating new ideas and new concepts. And I would throw on top of that an awareness for any owner operator getting into the game, so to speak. Especially if you're in a place with a lot of customer turnover. San Diego, Pacific Beach, Ocean Beach, there's always a lot of new customers, long term too, but every few years you're going to have kind of a new vibe a little bit in the shop as some of those core people move on, or core customers move on, or vice versa, or your employees move on. And so you really are introducing a new emotion into your business every couple of years, just because the people are changing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's who makes up the shop, is the people. You can have the product and be proud of that, but that's just part of the brand. Really, it's the people. So that's a really good point.
Well, if you weren't so dang far away, Chris, thank you for being here, for helping me work on this video thing and figure out how it all works. You've always been a guide for me. I appreciate the nice things you say that I've helped you back, but nobody believes that. If you're watching this podcast, head to coffeecycleroasting.com. Follow Coffee Cycle Roasting on social media. You'll see links in this podcast show notes. You'll see them in our Roast West Coast newsletter, maybe even on the screen somewhere. I haven't really quite figured all that part of it out yet. Thank you to Roastar for supporting this podcast, and thank you to you for trying to be coffee smarter. Next time, Chris.
Appreciate you always, Ryan. See you next time.